Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Monday. It is the start of another week. Hope you're having a good one, wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Thank you, as always, for joining me. Look, I'd love to sit here right now, start a new week, and say, brilliant. Look at what's happening. Arsenal are about to sign this guy. They're about to sign this guy. Everything's moving forward. We're really, really close. But I can't, unfortunately, as I'm pretty sure all of you are pretty much aware, because you've been keeping on tabs on what's been going on over the last 48 hours or so, just as much as I have. And not really much has gone on, certainly publicly anyway. You would hope behind the scenes, lots has gone on to sort of move things forward and progress things forward for Arsenal when it comes to signing the players that they want to sign to get the squad to the strength that it wants to be by the time pre-season kicks off. But publicly, not much feels like it's happening. Unfortunately, I can't sit here and tell you too much more about that. But there is stuff to talk about. The kind of flip-flopping from Portugal on Viktor Gyokeres continues. So I'm definitely going to talk about that because I think it's really, really interesting. And it's kind of the latest reports over there are kind of why I've been urging everyone just to stay a little bit calm about what you're hearing and you're reading from Portugal about the whole Viktor Gyokeres to Arsenal thing. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about potentially some players who might go from Arsenal. AC Milan said to be in London this week for talks over at least a couple of Arsenal players. We'll talk about Myles Lewis-Skelly. The Real Madrid stuff continues to rumble on. The contract talks are ongoing. Of course, we'll talk about that. We do have some questions and comments from you guys to get stuck into as well. Hopefully I get through this okay. Pretty tired this morning. Slept badly on the sofa last night because I stayed up late to watch the US Open golf. Well, I say I stayed up late. I stayed up late watching it and then managed to fall asleep right at the sort of crucial moment on the sofa and missed the final few holes when JJ Spawn went on to win it in the way he did. So not the best night's sleep for me. So I'm pretty uncomfortable today. Back hurting, neck hurting, and all that sort of stuff. But I'll power through. So yes, we're going to start on Viktor Gyokeres because we kind of feel like you have to, because at the moment that's what the big headlines are. But as I've been saying in the last few videos that I've done, with all the stuff that's been coming out from Portugal about the bid, the formal offer, all of that sort of stuff, and then Gyokeres telling Manchester United he doesn't want Manchester United, he wants Arsenal, and all that sort of stuff. It's all been really hyping over there. The sort of suggestion that this is going to definitely get done and that he is the guy that Arsenal are going for. And I said it yesterday, just be a little bit calm about it, be a bit skeptical about what you're kind of hearing. And the sort of pace at which things seem to be moving, certainly in the Portuguese media when it comes to Gyokeres, because again, sort of pointing out, none of the Arsenal press pack have really sort of followed this up yet or been able to back this up yet. We've been trying, but no one's really been able to do it. Hence why you haven't really seen any stories from the Arsenal press pack. Certainly stories as sort of firm and as hard as we've seen from the Portuguese media. And now the latest from Portugal today, or sort of late last night, was that Arsenal have now frozen talks with Sporting over Viktor Gyokeres. And this comes, kind of less than 24 hours after the reports of Gyokeres picks Arsenal, chooses Arsenal, and after the bid and all that sort of stuff. And so a story's been built up like that. And then suddenly, bang, by the same media outlets that have been building it up, it comes crashing down within about 24 hours. And it's why I've just been sort of sitting here and urging you just to be a bit calm about the sort of situation or what you're reading like now. Because I remember on Saturday when I was out and about and I was checking on the Inside Arsenal Discord and all the Gyokeres stuff was happening, and lots of the guys on there were kind of assuming this meant that Arsenal had picked Gyokeres. And I tried to say yesterday that I don't think that is the case. It might be that they end up signing him. He might be the guy they end up going for. But I don't think, because of what we've been seeing in the Portuguese media for the last couple of days, necessarily means that is a certainty. I still think stuff's going on with Sesko. I still think Arsenal are sort of getting themselves into position to know exactly what they're going to have to do. And then suddenly we're going to see them pull the trigger on one. Ideally, that is sooner rather than later. As I said yesterday, I feel like it should be. Feels like long enough after the season's shut. I mean, today is actually the opening day of the main transfer window of the summer. That is only today. But I still feel that Arsenal need to be in a position to really sort of go for it now when it comes to this forward, whoever it's going to be. But just because of what we've seen with Gyokeres, I didn't necessarily think that meant he was going to be the guy. Sesko is still very, very much in the running as far as I'm concerned for this. And the fact that the story in Portugal now has suddenly been Arsenal frozen all talks with Sporting because of the price that Sporting are demanding and all that sort of stuff. It's just, as I said, the story being built up and then built down in the space of about, 3 mad whirlwind days when it comes to the kind of reporting over there. So I'd just be a bit I hate using the word patience because I know it annoys everyone. But unfortunately, there is no other word we can use at the moment. We kind of just have to be until they do it. We kind of have to be. But yeah, so that's the latest on Gyokeres from Portugal now, is that those talks have been frozen, and Gyökeres is still hopeful that Arsenal will come in for him, get the deal done. But ultimately, we're going to have to wait and see on that. Lots of you been getting in touch on it, as always. Like pretty much every single comment on on the YouTube videos I've been doing recently have been about the striker situation. You can really get the sense of the sort of frustration and the level of frustrations that are building at the moment. Tommy says, I don't understand why people believe we are now definitely signing Gyökeres when it's already well established our new sporting director likes to get all of his targets at the point of completing a deal before deciding which one to pull the trigger on. This is just classic tactical approaches so that when the window opens again, they are ready to pull the trigger on their final choice. As far as I'm aware, the club's preference is Sesko, and the only reason we're progressing with the other deal is in case our preferred deal doesn't go through for whatever reason. If Berta was here last summer, I fully believe we'd have signed a striker and a winger, even when we didn't get Sesko and Williams. Carl says the Gyökeres thing is to get Sesko and his agent and RB Leipzig to get a deal done quicker. Nothing else. And he says all this messing around is at face value frustrating, but the better financial deal we can do for the striker, the more resources remain for a winger. It's the structuring of the striker deal that allows us scope for us to go and get if the structuring of the striker deal allows us scope to go and get Rodrigo, then it's a Berta masterclass. Kelvin says, I'm not fully aware of how things work in the background, but I keep hearing that Berta has all this experience and is doing a great job. Unfortunately, I find that hard to believe. I don't see our rivals juggling multiple plates, at least not publicly. I think it makes more sense to pick your targets and get the deals done. We are fully aware of what we need and have been in contact with the targets since 2024. So why all the confusion? It is very frustrating. So different sort of opinion or people at different stages when it comes to how they're feeling about the summer window. I mean, I think the thing with Berta at the moment, and Berta's getting a lot of talking point, a lot of people are talking about Berta and the job he's doing. And I think it's very interesting from someone who kind of come to know quite well how Arsenal operated under the Edu era as sporting director. This is a step into unknown for all of us. I don't know yet. I haven't. This is a new thing for all of us in terms of how Arsenal are operating in the transfer market, how Berta does his job. And we're all getting used to it or trying to work out exactly how it works. So it is all a bit of a step until unknown. And there's lots to talk about whether he's doing a good job, as some people seem to say here in the comments, and then other people are sort of worried about the job he's doing and the sort of perception of how he's operated. I think ultimately we just got to wait until the end of the window. And then we can really sort of judge the job Berta has done. I have heard some quite good things in terms of how he's operating, certainly when it comes to contract talks, and that he is impressing people. But you would kind of hope that's the case. That's just a given. That's what you want to hear, isn't it? But I think ultimately we just can't judge him until certainly the end of this window, because it's his first window, but even sort of longer than that, really, because this is the first window he's been in. But it's very hard to judge straight away. But yeah, I would say certainly the end of the window is a time to really work out how the sort of job Berta has done, whether it's been a good one and all that sort of stuff. It's just a little bit too early at the moment. And like, I've said, like the people here said, we're still sort of coming to grips or getting to grips with exactly how he does operate in this market. Myles Lewis-Skelly, the Real Madrid stuff continues to rumble on. I mean, there's not too much more to sort of say about it, really. Arsenal are confident that they can get him to sign. They're obviously very, very hopeful that they can get him to sign. You never can say never in football. I'm being really careful here because you just never want to be aggregated the wrong way. You never want to say never in football, obviously, but I just can't see a way that Myles Lewis-Skelly does not sign a new contract. It would be one of the most baffling decisions I've ever seen in football. I think for a kid who's come through the academy, worked so hard since his 8-year-old for his dream to make it into the Arsenal first team, to then not sign a new contract, having got into the first team, forced his way to be number one choice, be basically number one choice for his country as well, all before his 19th birthday, to then sort of to not sign a new contract, and even because it's Real Madrid, to go, it just feels it would be so early. It'd be almost unprecedented almost for someone like his age to do that. So I don't see a way that it happens. I think I'm really confident that he'll sign a new contract. I mean, that is based on sort of on hunch rather than actual sort of information. But the information that we have been getting on Lewis-Skelly is that Arsenal are confident that things will be ironed out and he will sign a new contract sooner rather than later. So that's all I can really sort of go on at it at the moment. So I wouldn't be too worried about the Real Madrid stuff. Certainly hearing sort of fairly positive signs that that it will happen. Of course, Real Madrid will be interested in him. We know they like to operate in the free transfer market. We know they like to get some really big deals out of the free transfer market. We've seen that with Mbappe, with Trent, for example. And I'm sure they saw firsthand just how good Myles Lewis-Skelly is when he absolutely bossed them over 2 legs in the Champions League last season. So, of course, they're interested. Other people will be interested and will be keeping tabs on his situation, or however it's described in media reports. But ultimately, I still think he'll sign his new contract with Arsenal. He's absolutely happy here, playing week in, week out, in it at his own club. I don't see a way, and that'll probably come back to bite me, but I just don't see a way that he does not sign his new contract. In terms of players who might be going out this summer, obviously Zinchenko, Kivior, we've seen Calafiori. I mean, those are mad. I know we have kind of discussed the possibility of Calafiori potentially going this summer because of the emergence of Myles Lewis-Skelly, but I still don't really see that happening. I think it'd be quite an interesting decision if someone put down a lot of money for Calafiori this summer. If an Italian club like AC Milan, for example, who's said to be interested, put down a lot of money, it'd be very interesting to see exactly how Arsenal handled that. But I'd still be very surprised. Zinchenko is a completely different sort of kettle of fish in that. I would expect if a good offer comes in for Zinchenko, that Arsenal would certainly entertain that. Whether he would entertain it or he would want to stay for his final year and then sort of weigh up his options at the end of his contract and go on a free transfer where he'll probably get bigger wages somewhere else, that might be the case. But I'm sure Arsenal would be very, very open. Well, they are open to letting him go. There are believed to be talks happening with AC Milan. They've flown in to London to hold talks over Zinchenko, Kivior. Kivior's a different one. But I think out of the three sort of that we've seen mentioned with AC Milan interest of Calafiori, Zinchenko and Kivior, Zinchenko is certainly the one that Arsenal would be the most open to allowing to leave. Zinchenko, Kivior, they'd have quite a big decision to make. I don't think there'd even be a decision over Calafiori. It'd take a massive bid for Arsenal to even consider that, I'm sure. And he's already said he has no interest in going back to Italy anyway. He's looking forward to another season in the Premier League. And I'm really looking forward to seeing, hopefully, Calafiori stay fit next season and really start to show us the sort of impact that he can make on the pitch, because I think there's huge amounts of potential there to be a bit of a game changer for Arsenal. We're going to move on to some questions and comments now before we wrap this one up for today. Vet Para's got in touch on the strikers there, saying 100% agree that it would be too expensive to sign Gyokeres and Sesko. However, would you take either of them as well as a punt on Darwin Núñez, who would be a lot cheaper? And generally not a fan of rehabilitating underperforming players from other clubs, Grealish, Sancho, but Núñez is super versatile and a creator of chaos. Darwin Núñez is such an interesting player. I think Darwin Núñez has absolutely got a 30-goal season in him. You don't get into the positions that he gets into, and you could have a mad season where he overperforms his XG, takes his chances. If he did that, he would score a bucket load because he gets himself into so many good chances, so many good areas to have chances. But I wouldn't want him, no, in answer to your Vet Para. I don't think he'd be that much cheaper either. Liverpool understood to be sort of holding out for a really good transfer fee for Núñez if they are going to let him go this summer. So I don't think he would necessarily be that much cheaper either. But it's just the whole, as you mentioned there, underperforming players sort of trying to rehabbing them on the go. I think we've been burnt by that a few too many times. So it wouldn't be one for me. But I do think Núñez is a really interesting player. And I would not be at all surprised if he had an absolute unbelievable season at some point. Whether he could maintain it or whether it would be a one-off, I don't know. But I bet analysts sort of look at Núñez, look at the chaos he brings, look at the chances he creates, the positions he gets into, the strength, the attributes he has. And I bet they look at him and just think, you're an untapped gold. You're a potential gold mine if you can get the best out of him. It hasn't happened at Liverpool. And I think sort of when you look at it over the last few seasons, it looks less and less likely that it will happen. But I don't know. But not for me, no. It's not one I would consider. Ollie's got in touch on the Discord for Inside Arsenal members on Patreon. Says, should we be worried about Arsenal supposing to line up both strikers ready to pounce on one when the time is right? This makes me think they're still undecided on who they want. I would have much rather they'd done the scouting last season or so and have an answer ready for the window. Maybe it's because Berta has just come in. I'm not sure how long it takes to agree on what player to bring in, but it seems like a long enough delay to raise question marks on this. We've seen United making an attempt on Gyokeres. What's stopping a big club tempting Sesko and snapping him up out of the blue? Kepa deal was out of the blue. Is there any more news on this? On the Kepa news, no, not that I've got anyway. I just know that Arsenal are expecting him still to sign. I can't really progress it any more than that at the moment. I think you're right to have those concerns. I don't think you're the only person to have those concerns, Ollie. As I sort of said at the start of the show, I would have expected Arsenal to have really sort of made a firm move in the striker market by now, given the importance of getting that signing right. I would have felt the due diligence would have been done a long, long time before to be ready to be in a position to really go for it. Whether they were expecting, vastly different price tags once they really sort of did officially enter into talks with some clubs, I don't know. Whether that's just sort of put them on the back foot a bit, I don't know. Whether there even are on the back foot. I mean, again, from people I speak to about it, they're all just the same messages comes back about, we're really calm about what we're doing, about how we're executing our plan, all that sort of stuff. So maybe they are calm about it behind the scenes. Maybe they are where they want to be. But I think you're right, Ollie. It's tough to get sort of a few weeks now into the summer and to still kind of be in a position where it doesn't feel like we know for sure who the main target is. That it's hard not to be a little bit sort of worried and suspicious by that. But look, hopefully we give it another couple of days, Ollie, and we'll know exactly what's going on. But at the moment, it's tough to stay completely calm and not think that there's a little bit of confusion going on behind the scenes. But hopefully we're wrong. Southwest Goon has got in touch about the atmosphere and at the Emirates, and he's asked a few questions on it. He says, what are your thoughts on moving the away section up into the gods to the top tier and having Gooners all in the lower tier like Newcastle and other clubs do? You can't. I know Newcastle, there's a reason somehow that Newcastle have got around the rules that allows them to put the away fans where they put them. But the rules in the Premier League are very, very sort of consistent and about where away fans need to go, and they can't go in the top tier at the Emirates. It just can't happen. So, my thoughts would be fine if that was to happen, but I don't think it can. It's just not able to. And to be fair, I don't think that would work either. I like the away fans where they are. I think that adds to the atmosphere. If you don't have away fans. So remember the Bayern Munich game in Champions League when Bayern Munich had no fans and it was all Arsenal fans, and all the talk was, it's going to be absolutely brilliant. It's just going to be all Arsenal. But I think you need those away fans to really be able to bounce off. It's why at Highbury, my season ticket at Highbury was next to the away fans. And when we moved to the Emirates in 2006, myself and my dad deliberately got our tickets right next to the away fans as well, because we just love that bounce and that atmosphere. I think it really, really helps. So I don't think sticking them up in the gods would actually improve the atmosphere. I think it'd have a negative effects on it. You talk about stay standing in the North Bank and the clock ends. I believe the atmosphere suffers as it's not as noisy when people are forced to sit. Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely be all up for stay standing in the North Bank and the clock end. Again, I think the club kind of believe, they always talk about feasibility studies of doing it, but I don't think there's a massive sort of drive at the club to really do it. I think because of the size of the seats and stuff at the Emirates as well, they seem to, there's always a suggestion that safe standing doesn't really work there. But I kind of get the impression the club aren't too really bothered about it, but I would love it. I think it'd be really, really good. You talk about giving the Ashburton Army a larger allocation to drive the atmosphere. I think absolutely. I don't think that will happen either, because the club, reduced it for what they believe was a good reason to reduce it. I think that definitely had a negative impact on the atmosphere when there was a bigger Ashburton Army group behind the clock end goal. It was clear that had a really beneficial effect on the atmosphere. And once that was reduced, the noise levels reduced again. So I'd be all for giving them a larger allocation, tweak the ballot system to increase chances of those that apply to all games rather than just pick and choose. Yeah, I mean, the ballot system is just such a minefield, and it has been for so long since it was introduced. And it's just, it's just really, really hard to sort of sit here and say exactly what they need to do. But I think there's definitely some areas. I just think they need to listen to fans more. Now, they needed to listen to fans when it came to the atmosphere before the Champions League semi-final, but they went their own way about it, and look what happened there. And I think they need to listen to fans more, who sort of really get impacted by the ballot system and how it works, and just listen to some improvements, because I think they could really, really help with that. So yeah, all good points, Southwest Gooner. Charlie J. Oh, yeah, this was about Leverkusen, wasn't it? He said, Tar, Wirtz, Frimpong already, potentially Boniface and Granit. Can't blame these players for getting out of Leverkusen rather than suffer Ten Hag as their manager. Head says we don't need him in our squad, but my heart can't help but hope we try to bring Granit home. I don't think that is going to happen, Charlie. I don't think his wife would really be too keen on coming back to London either. She, was very happy to get out of here after a long time in London. She wanted to try something new. Granit wanted to try something new. Neither of them, they're not going to come back. at this point, as much as there is a lot of love for Granit now at Arsenal, and he still holds the club in high regard. I remember being down in the mix zone with Granit after his final game. What was it? 2 seasons ago now, and we were saying goodbye to him. And he was ready to go. He wanted to try something new. He's not going to come back. Sounds like he might well be going to AC Milan as well, or AC Milan are going to really sort of try and get a deal done for him this week. So who knows? Maybe Zinchenko or Kivior. Maybe they end up back with Granit Xhaka in just a few weeks' time at AC Milan. We'll have to wait and see how that progresses. But thank you to everyone for sending in your questions and comments. Appreciate it as always. I'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again. We've got the Arsenal press pass being recorded tomorrow for Inside Arsenal members as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Until then, speak to you soon, everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye.